Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. So if you've been following my live streams, whether they're here or over on twitch.tv/realmrrobinson, you may have heard that I wanted to do a couple of theme park related videos, but I've just never found the time. Well, now I've found the time, and with both Disneyland Resort and Universal Studios Hollywood opening up this month, perfect timing. So I'm going to be doing two videos based off both of these theme parks. And as the title suggests, it's just going to be as simple as talking about my favorite attractions. So this first video right here is going to be as simple as can be. This is me talking about my 10 favorite Disneyland attractions. Now I want to make something perfectly clear before we get started. When I say Disneyland, I'm talking about the entire resort, Disneyland and California Adventure. I've decided to leave out any attractions from Walt Disney World because last time I was there was in 2006, and I've only been to one of their theme parks, Epcot. I have not been to the Magic Kingdom, I have not been to Hollywood Studios, and I have not been to Animal Kingdom. But maybe one day, whenever I go back to Disney World and finally go to those other parks, I'll make that list at some point. I don't know when, but I will keep that promise. So apologies for you Florida residents out there, or those of you that prefer Disney World to Disneyland. But regardless of that, let's just start this list and jump right into Number 10. Radiator Springs Racers at Disney's California Adventure. Now, I actually have been on the attraction that inspired this, Test Track at Epcot. I remember that ride being a ton of fun, and in my opinion, it's the superior version. It still utilizes the same ride vehicles and still has the same idea as Test Track, where you're driving around these areas, and then at the end of the ride, it's like full speed roller coaster. It's not really a roller coaster, but it definitely gives you an adrenaline rush. And while the Cars movies are not my favorite movies that Pixar has made, and I've made that perfectly clear many times on this channel, this ride and all of Cars Land is incredibly well detailed. It's so immersive, which is the thing that Disney does best with their rides, and even their lands in general. It's a lot of fun, it's intense, it's always fun to race against the other car that's right next to you. It's not a ride that I would say I adore, and if it has a really long line, then I'm turning around and coming back later. But at number 10, it's good enough to make it on this list. Number 9. Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disneyland. This is a ride that is exclusive to Disneyland itself and no other theme park in the world. Yes, the track layout and even the designs for the bobsleds was utilized for the Magic Kingdom Space Mountain, but outside of that, the Matterhorn Bobsleds is an exclusive ride, and it's pretty great as well. The way they've recreated Matterhorn Mountain is incredible. The atmosphere inside the mountain is pretty great. The appearances by the Abominable Snowman is just chilling every time, no pun intended, or did I? The worst thing about it is that it's incredibly bumpy. Like, there are several moments where it can really rock you, and not in a very good way. Really great, but it could definitely use some smoothing out of the tracks. Number 8. Peter Pan's Flight. This coming Wednesday, I'll actually be reviewing the movie that this ride is based upon, and if you're watching this in the future, you can go to that link right here. But this attraction is probably the crown jewel of Fantasyland in any Disney theme park that you go to. It has the longest lines, which I find to be absurd, but when you go on the ride, it actually makes a lot of sense for two reasons. One, it's because the boats actually hold a limited amount of people, so there's only so many people they can get on the ride at a time, but also it's just a great ride itself. The feeling of flying across London and Neverland, just like the characters in the movie, really does make you young at heart. Listening to Oliver Wallace's score and the iconic You Can Fly song just adds to the experience. It's got some great animatronics, the theming is fantastic, and while it is a condensed retelling of the actual movie, it's still a lot of fun, and anyone who's been on this ride knows that the long wait time is absolutely worth it. But you also might want to make it one of the first rides you go on when you get to the park, especially if you go there when the gates open, because when the lines get long, they get really long, and there's really no exaggeration. Number 7. Alice in Wonderland. While I would still argue that Peter Pan's flight is the crown jewel of Fantasyland, Alice in Wonderland is another exclusive attraction for Disneyland and my favorite of the entire land. Much like how the movie is my favorite Disney animated movie made when Walt was alive. Much like with Peter Pan's flight, the atmosphere to Alice in Wonderland is just fantastic. Going through the rabbit hole, traveling through Wonderland, going through all these various scenarios. More than any other ride, I feel like this is the true definition of a dark ride because it captures that dark look that Wonderland in the movie sometimes gives you. And another thing I like about this ride is the false ending that it gives you. When you escape from the Queen of Hearts and her executioner, who does not appear in the movie for I guess 1951, they could have included that character, but regardless, you wind down that outside path and you're thinking, wow, that was a great ride. But it felt like it was missing a very important scene. And then you go inside, there's that scene with the tea party, and then the exploding unbirthday cake. So it's a weird way to end an attraction, but it goes in spirit with the movie itself. Again, this is my favorite of all the Fantasyland rides. Peter Pan, again, is probably the most famous, but Alice in Wonderland is my favorite. Number 6. The Haunted Mansion. If there was ever one Disney attraction that can be singled out for its great use of atmosphere, it's the Haunted Mansion. This thing's got everything from hitchhiking ghosts, graveyards, a ballroom full of dancing ghosts, Madame Leota. It's just dripping with haunted atmosphere. But to be honest, the ride itself, while it's creepy, it's not as scary as you would think. The scariest part of the ride for me is honestly the pre-show, and this has always affected me. Back when I was a kid, that part creeped me out because I didn't know how this room stretched out. I literally thought it was magic. And even to this day, the illusion of the room stretching still perplexes me. And then the other two things that really make this section of the ride creepy and terrifying to me is the narrator and the last thing you see before the doors open to the ride. Is this haunted room actually stretching? Or is it your imagination? And consider this dismaying observation. This chamber has no windows and no doors, which offers you this chilling challenge to find a way out. Of course, there's always my way. And then the lights go out, there's strobe effects to simulate thunder and lightning, and the second you look up at that ceiling, you go, that is a corpse hanging by a noose. Disneyland, everyone! So to that day, that segment creeps me the hell out, and the rest of the ride is just fantastic in terms of its atmosphere. And the Haunted Mansion holiday conversion is also great. The idea that those Imagineers had to redecorate the entire attraction themed to Nightmare Before Christmas is astonishing. Like, it really does transform into a different ride, and I love that version as well. So I guess this is a tie between Haunted Mansion Holiday and the original classic. Number 5. Twilight Zone Tower of Terror and Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Speaking of ties, I really couldn't pick one or the other, and I love both of these rides, but for completely different reasons. I love the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror because it's terrifying. More than the Haunted Mansion, this ride creeped me out when it was in operation. And the reason this ride always scared me when going on it is more the build-up. I rarely go on freefall rides. Whenever I go to a major theme park like Knott's or Six Flags, whenever they have a freefall ride, I am like, nope. No, not going on it. You can't make me. But Tower of Terror is that one exception, but it's probably the most terrifying of all because you're inside and you're just waiting for the moment to where you're dropped and you can't see the outside world. You don't know what's going on and the drops are completely unpredictable. I haven't been to the one in Hollywood Studios in Orlando. And apparently that version is longer, but if the one in California Adventure creeped me out as much as it did, I can imagine how the Florida one creeps you out. And then when you get to Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, it replaces the scary aspect with the fun aspect. I remember so many people were upset that Tower of Terror was being replaced by this. but I think this is a worthy successor. It's definitely a lot of fun. It gets you right into the thrills rather than building it up for you. It's just fantastic to get an attraction based off the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the Monsters After Dark sequence that happens during Mickey's Halloween party is also great. That one isn't as scary as Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, but it definitely tries to bring back that scary element that was missing from the main ride. So again, this was a tie because I can't decide which one I like over the other. Number 4. Pirates of the Caribbean. Probably the most relaxing attraction at Disneyland. Sure, there's something like Storybook Canals and the Disneyland Railroad, but Pirates of the Caribbean works better for me as a relaxing attraction because of its atmosphere. The opening for the Disneyland ride has the strangest beginning because it takes place in a bayou, like a Louisiana swamp, and I know the ride is based in the New Orleans area, but for a ride about pirates, this is a bizarre start. And while there are 2 drops in the ride, they're not as intense, nowhere near as intense as something like Splash Mountain or Jurassic Park. But after that, the ride is just very smoothing, it's relaxing. You get some great production design with the caves, the town that the pirates start robbing, the really catchy song. It really does give the atmosphere of Haunted Mansion a run for its money because it's so well themed. And if you're curious on what my thoughts are on the changes made to the ride ever since the movies became big hits, I'm okay with them. It doesn't ruin the ride in any way. It's still the same thing. You're just getting little stuff from the movie in the background. Like you've got an animatronic Captain Barbossa, you've got animatronic Jack Sparrows that don't really feel out of place. You used to have a hologram of Davy Jones and Blackbeard, but last time I was on Pirates of the Caribbean, they took that away. So I think they're fine additions and don't distract from just how great a ride this is. It's a slow burn and it might not be for everyone, but if you're walking around Disneyland and you just want to take a moment to relax, then Pirates of the Caribbean will do it for you. And the lines aren't really that long also. That's another advantage. Number 3. Star Tours and Star Tours The Adventures Continue. This is another instance where I couldn't pick one, and they're essentially the same ride, more so than Twilight Zone Tower of Terror and Guardians of the Galaxy. If I had to pick one, I guess my favorite would be the original because I have such a soft spot for that ride. It was actually my main introduction to Star Wars before I watched any of the movies. It was the first time I ever saw C-3PO and R2-D2, and when you watch the movie they made for the ride, it's impressive how they managed to pull it off because they utilized the same special effects techniques used to create the space combat scenes in the original trilogy without CG. And for it to be shown in a ride that's one continuous take blows my mind to this day. The sequel unfortunately doesn't have that charm and only relies on CGI, but the thing that the sequel has above the original is unpredictability. The sequel recreates many sequences from the entire Skywalker saga, so you don't know what you're gonna see every time you go on. You could start off the ride by running into Darth Vader or some stormtroopers or Kylo Ren. You could then go into hyperspace and land on either Hoth, Jakku, Tatooine, Kashyyyk. You'd get transmissions from characters like Admiral Akbar, Yoda, Princess Leia, BB-8, Poe Dameron. Then you'd suddenly jump to hyperspace again where you'd land in Coruscant, Naboo, Geonosis, Crate. It was nuts. The first time I ever revisited Disneyland since the sequel opened 10 years ago, I just rode that ride as many times as possible to try to get every single scenario. And eventually I did, and it was awesome. Yes, it'll break continuity if you go to Hoth where they recreate the battle in Empire Strikes Back, and then you suddenly go to Coruscant where they recreate the battle at the opening Revenge of the Sith, but that's not what this ride is about. Galaxy's Edge is about creating your own Star Wars adventure that stays within canon to the timeline. Star Tours is about reliving those iconic sequences from the movies. So in that case, I'm like, screw canon, I just want to relive these iconic moments. So again, like with Tower of Terror and Guardians of the Galaxy, I couldn't decide which one of them is my favorite because they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Number 2. Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, or Indiana Jones Adventure for short. This ride kicks ass. Not only is it based off one of the greatest film series of all time, the Indiana Jones series, but again, the attention to detail, the atmosphere, the sets when you actually go on the ride, just all of it is perfection. And much like with Star Tours, you have John Williams' iconic music taking you through the ride. There's pyrotechnics, there's animatronics, there's that giant boulder that comes rolling towards you. And the very first time I went on that ride, again, I had not seen the Indiana Jones movies before going on this ride, and that boulder sequence terrified me because it was huge, it was coming towards us, and I'm like, there's no way out of this. And then you just drop down, and it's over. Like, this ride really took the breath out of me when I first went on it. And I always make this attraction a priority to go on, regardless of the long lines, although this is one of the few Disneyland attractions that allows single riders. But even then, if single riders is down and I can't get a fast pass, I am waiting in that line because it is such a great ride. Number 1. Space Mountain. Despite every bit of praise that I've given to the other attractions beforehand, especially with Indiana Jones, Space Mountain takes the number 1 spot because it is the ride that I always make a point to end my day on. Much like with Peter Pan's Flight, this is one of those rides that you might want to go to as a first priority when you enter the park because the lines can go up to 2 hours long. And whenever I'm at Disneyland, they usually are at 2 hours all day. But it's a high-speed roller coaster in the dark with fantastic lighting effects, a great score by Michael Giacchino, or if you rode this ride before the 50th anniversary update, a great surfer riff. It's just amazing all around. It's intense. I love how you don't see where you're going. The build up to the actual roller coaster section of the attraction is intense. The queue itself is fantastic and you really feel like you're on a space station. And I even like the seasonal update that they gave to it when each of the sequel trilogy movies were coming out, Hyperspace Mountain. It's just fantastic. I know the Magic Kingdom one is much different than this, and even though that one came out first, I'll give that the benefit of the doubt whenever I go on it, but I don't think it can be as good as this version here. This version is just great, it's fantastic, it's adrenaline filled, it's exciting, and again, the fact that I make it a priority to end my day at Disneyland with Space Mountain says a lot about how great it is. And there you go, that's my list for my top 10 favorite Disneyland attractions. I want to give some few honorable mentions before I take off, and that includes Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Disneyland Railroad, Grizzly Rapids, California Screaming, or the Incredicoaster, the Jungle Cruise, and Soarin' Over California, or Soarin' Over the World. Apologies for not mentioning Rise of the Resistance, and the only reason Rise of the Resistance is not in the honorable mentions or in my top 10 list is because I haven't been on it. That ride opened in January of 2020 in Disneyland and was only open for 2 months before the pandemic hit and closed the park. So I have not been on it, but I can't wait to go on it, and I will definitely post a video about it when I go on it. But now I want to hear from you guys. What are your favorite Disneyland attractions? Do you agree with this list, or do you disagree with some parts of this list, or the whole list? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching this list of my favorite Disneyland attractions. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on social media, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go check out my Twitch channel and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.